It very much looks like the regime could indeed fall, and that's what people on the ground in Syria are telling me.
Syrian rebel forces say they've reached the central city of Homs after their rapid advance towards the capital, Damascus, continues. Well, President Erdogan of Turkey appeared to back the rebel offensive in a statement he made yesterday. We'll find out more about that with Stephanie Glinsky. She's Middle East correspondent based in Istanbul. Stephanie, let's start with Erdogan because a really quite strong statement against Assad from him. Tell us about this and the significance of it.
Yeah, indeed. So Erdogan was here yesterday in Istanbul, and after Friday prayers at the mosque, he was speaking to reporters. And what he was saying is that the opposition march continues, and he was naming Idlib, Hama, Homs, and then saying the target, of course, was Damascus. And what he also said is that he made a call to Assad saying, let's figure out the future of Syria together. And he said he did not receive a positive response. So that's a very, very strong statement. Obviously, Erdogan has been trying to reach out to Assad earlier this year in the summer. Those conversations didn't go anywhere. And so him saying those statements are very, very strong indeed. Assad, of course, now is in a very difficult position with rebels closing in on him on Damascus.
Interesting as well, Iran's move as well, beginning to evacuate military officials and personnel. They have been a firm backer of the Assad regime over the past 13 years. The mood seems to be significantly shifting in terms of external actors.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, Iranian forces are now also being evacuated. Russia has, of course, told its citizen that they should be leaving Syria as well. So all of Assad's allies are sort of kind of falling away. I mean, Assad has been asking for support. Russia has signaled that it's busy as well, that Russia has its own priorities. So there has been support for Assad, but it's been very, very limited if we compare that to previous years. And right now, what we're seeing is, of course, we have two fronts closing in on Damascus. We have the northern fronts where the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the HTS rebels, are closing in. They have already taken Hama. They are just in Homs right now. So this offensive is rapidly, rapidly continuing. Of course, Aleppo has already been taken. And then we have another front that opened up in the south. And that's quite significant because we're looking at a place, Dara, which is where the uprising started in 2011. So this is 13 years ago. Of course, this then caused a civil war. 500,000 people have since been killed. And in Dara, rebels have also been uprising, and they have taken the city, they have taken the province, and they've also taken a significant border crossing with Jordan, the Nasib crossing. So we have now two fronts closing in on Damascus. So for Assad, this is a very, very difficult time, of course, as city after city and province after province are falling to rebels. And we don't just have the HTS here, we also have other groups that are opposing the government, especially if we're looking at places like Dara, if we're looking at places like Suwaida, also in the south. There are Druze communities, there are other opposition groups. And while they might not align, they are certainly aligning on one goal, and that is to topple the regime and to get rid of Assad.
Do you think that will happen? How likely is that? Do you think this is just the march towards that? And what happens then, do you think?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Of course, today we also have the meeting between the Iranian, the Turkish, and the Turkish, the Iranian, and the Russian foreign ministers in Doha, which I think will bring a lot more clarity as in what will happen with the allies of Assad, what's going to happen to the region, to Syria. But of course, I've spoken to many people in Syria, people who are in Aleppo, who are in Idlib, people who are also in Damascus. And a lot of people do think that this is the end of Assad, that the regime will fall, that there is no turning back right now. Of course, we don't know this right now. Of course, there's also a lot of propaganda in social media. We're hearing this from all sides. Of course, this is very typical in a sort of escalating conflict. There's been a lot of speculation whether Assad is going to be leaving the country. That's, of course, unclear as of now. But what we do know is that major cities in 1 week have been taken, including Aleppo and Hama, which is the third biggest city in the country. We now have Homs as well. So it very much looks like the regime could indeed fall, and that's what people on the ground in Syria are telling me.
Stephanie, thank you very much indeed. That's Stephanie Glinsky there, Middle East correspondent based in Istanbul.
Since 2020, the Syrian conflict was a frozen conflict, but a frozen conflict is still a conflict. And at some point, it could be reactivated again and it comes back to life again. All the root causes of the Syrian conflict were still there. The regime was weaker than before. And I think that's why we are where we are today.
أكبر الله أكبر.
During the civil war, Assad didn't win the war, but he prevented everyone else from winning. And I think what's happening today, it's not only that there are external pressure by other armed groups, there is also clear some sort of an implosion inside the regime that's happening. And I think that's due to many different reasons. Of course, the economic collapse is one of them, and also the weakening of the alliances that Bashar al-Assad had before. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham evolved from Jabhat al-Nusra, which was Al-Qaeda branch inside Syria. It evolved in a certain way, and now they are trying to draw an image that's a more of a modern image or a more moderate version of Jabhat al-Nusra. Many Syrians are skeptical. Many Syrians are very anxious. They are watching what's happening, trying to understand what Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is today. There is clearly still militant and radical elements inside the group, but we still don't know how radical Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is today. Clearly today, the fighters of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham are more equipped and trained, and there was also a direct and obvious buildup of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham over the last couple of years, and especially over the last few months. But I think another crucial factor of why Hayat Tahrir al-Sham was able to push against the Syrian forces is that they have a goal, which lacks, when we talk about the Syrian forces, they lack a clear goal of why they are still fighting this war. And that's why we're witnessing some sort of an alliance also between different armed groups that they all agree there is a need to topple Bashar al-Assad. The Syrian conflict is a multi-dimensional and multi-layer conflict. One of those layers is the regional conflict, and regional powers play a direct and a significant role in this attack. We can definitely highlight the Turkish role in backing different armed groups on the ground, but also there are external players like Russia, which offered Assad huge support, especially 2015 onwards. But today, Russia does not seem to be as interested in supporting Assad the same way they supported him 9 years ago. The war in Lebanon was certainly consequential on the Syrian conflict. Hezbollah intervened in 2013 to support Assad, and they played a significant role. Now, that factor being taken out of the equation, the situation returned somehow to where it was almost 10 years ago, with Assad being on the back foot, returning or withdrawing from certain areas, and rebel groups pushing against him. The United States has around 900 troops in the northeast of Syria. Their priority is to fight ISIS and to support the Syrian Democratic Forces, which played a significant role in the fight against ISIS. The American troops have not intervened in any intra-Syrian fighting that's happening now on the ground. Their mission is still focused on supporting SDF if there is a fight against ISIS. But of course, everyone is waiting for President-elect Trump to go back to the White House, and then we'll be able to know, will those forces withdraw from Syria? Will they stay there, or will their mandate change? It's very difficult to tell if the Assad's regime will fall or not. But what we can tell is that Assad's regime won't be the same. It won't represent the Syrian state that it used to do just about a week ago. The situation on the ground is different. And not only that, the image of Assad and his regime is different now, not only in the eyes of the opposition and those who are against him, even in the eyes of the loyalists and those who supported Assad during this war. They feel now he is weaker, he does not have a vision, and he probably won't be able to shape the outcome of this conflict.